Boker Tov. Today's Daf is Daf Ayin Beis in קידושין, as we learn for Achayim Kol Beis Yisrael and soon about Sarah Bashivya. May everybody come home safely, and may all those who are wounded be healed. Amar Papa says, Papa in the fourth line of the page where we left off. We've just been discussing the boundaries of Bavel. We said Bavel has the purest of the Jews, the ones with the best lineage, and Eretz Yisrael came second, and then all the other countries came afterwards. That was Rav Meir's opinion. We'll see another opinion today. Rav Papa said this machlokes about how far it goes, because we had different issues. Does it go to this city or that city? How far do the boundaries of Bavel go, in which we can say this guy's from Bavel, this woman is from Bavel, and therefore her lineage is good. So that machlokes we have that we've had until now, the last few lines that I'm at base and the top here of Ayin Beis Amar Aleph, but Papa says the same machlokus that we have here for Yuchsin for getting married, kach machlokus linyan gittin. What does that have to do with gittin? Give her a divorce? No, we're talking about beginning of gittin. We learn how maybe get in a sense you bring a get from overseas, you have to say b'farei nechta. Two reasons: either because they didn't so makaimo, there's no Adam around to confirm these signatures, or because they're not learned. Well, in Bavel and Eretz Yisrael they were learned, so there was no problem there if you came to get from, let's say, from Bavel to Bavel, where there was no problem of Edom Mitzvah and Lekaimo, and they were learned in Bavel. Well, how far does Bavel go? So the same machlokas we have here for getting married, whether you have to check how far do you have to check their lineage, in terms of if they come from Bavel, they have a good lineage. If they come from elsewhere, they don't. Well, the same thing for Gittin. If a guy brings a get from one of these cities that are questionable if they're in Bavel or not, you have to determine. If it's in Bavel, you don't have to say b'fanei nechem. If it's outside Bavel, you have to say b'fanei nechem. Rav Yosef over machlokas. The machlokas is when it comes to family lineage, ancestry, genealogical classes. Aval Gittin call ad arba tanaina de gisha. But it comes to Gittin, everybody agrees that as far as arba tanaina, the second marsh by the bridge, the Gishra, until there, that's all considered Bavel. In other words, it's mashma that it's mashma until there. Everybody agrees when it comes to Gittin. Everybody agrees that it's until that second marsh. It's not clear as that the kulo l'chumra, because everybody agrees that it's until that spot. Until that spot is considered learned. Beyond that spot, they're not. Amar bar Abba Chavil Yama. So we're going to have about different places in Bavel. Is that considered Bavel? Not. So he says Chavil Yama, that place Tehilta de Bavel. That is like the glory of Bavel. In other words, that's one of the great places of Bavel. That it's a place with definitely good lineage. And Shunya Baguvia Tehilta de Chavil Yama. In other words, it's like the best city is Chavil Yama, and the best areas within that city, Shunya Baguvia, are the most glorified areas of Chavil Yama. Those are great places of great yichus. Ravina Amar Af Tzitzura. Tzitzura is another locale of Chel Yama. That also is a glorified, a good place. People come from there, have a good lineage. Shana Mihachi. We see another prize. Chanan ben Summer Chavil Yama. Chavil Yama is Tchil to the Bavel. Chavil Yama is the glory of Bavel. And Shunya V'Kuvia Vitzu Tzira. That third one also Tchil to the Chavil Yama is the great glorified places of Chavil Yama. Boidna. But nowadays, Yarvi Kusoi. That was then. But nowadays, some Kusoim, some Kutians who are, again, of questionable Judaism, are they really Jews or not? That's always a suffix mixed in there. Below, but that's not really the case. Issasahu the boy Minaya. What happened was one of the Kutam wanted to marry somebody from that time. They didn't allow him to. In other words, there was rumors that the Kutam were going to get mixed up because some guy, one of the Kutam, wanted to marry one of those girls, but they didn't really give it to him. Therefore, they spread a word. Oh, you see, Kusam were already marrying in there? No. They didn't allow them. They kept their lineage pure. My Chavil Yama. What is another word for Chavil Yama? Papa Zu Prasta Bursi. It's Bursi of the Euphrates. Euphrates Bursi. It's another name for that place in Bavel. And these are all considered choice towns of Bavel where their lineage is excellent. Ahu Gavra. We're about 12, 13 lines down on the page of Ayin Beis Amar Aleph. Ahu Gavra the Amar we told them, Anam means shoot me shoot. I'm from this place. Shoot me shoot. Amar Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Avragav. He stood up and speak. Amar shoot me shoot. Bein and Naharos. It's between the rivers. Between the rivers. So what does that mean? Between the rivers. Amar Bayim Chamba Baruch Bar Yossi Bar Panina Bein and Naharos. Arei Gol Yosin. Tosa says that if it's between the rivers that we talked about yesterday, basically the Euphrates and the Tigris, the Chidekel or the Diglat in Aramaic and Pras, and it's obvious. What do you mean, my Naharis? What does it mean, my? If it's being, it's obvious what we're talking about. It's between the rivers, so it's definitely in Bavel, and it's certainly okay. So he meant my Naharis. It just meant that there must be other rivers there. It's called Bein Naharis. That's the name of a place. So it's between two other rivers. Anyway, in those places, it's like Pumbedisa for Yufsim, and the Yichus is good. Again, all this is demonstrating that Bavel and whatever boundaries you put on Bavel has excellent lineage, as we said, according to Rav Papa, not only for getting married, but even for determining if a get came from that place, if you have to say b'fanei nechlet or not. Where is it? Rabbi Yochanan, above E Dekira, that place called E Dekira, above that. Ivan Rabbi Yochanan himself said, Ad Ma'abra, so he gives me yesterday, at the end of yesterday's daf, 3 lines from the bottom of the page, we said that how far does this go? How far is Ad Hecha? We said the level across, how far up on the Euphrates does Bavel go? Right? Again, up means towards Eretz Yisrael, down means not the way we normally think. Up means in the southern direction, down means in the northerly direction. So we said, how far up does it go? And he said, Ad Ma'abra Bigusa, until the ford of Gizma. And here he's saying that this place is above that. The Edikir above that. You're right. It basically goes up to the ford of Gizma. But then there's a little strip of land that goes out from there a little bit further, and that's above Edikira, and that's where that place is that we've just discussed of Bein Hanaharos, of Shok Mishok, which is Bein Hanaharos, which is a good place in Bavel, meaning it's in Bavel proper, and the Yichus is good. Amarav Ika Bar Abin, remember his name, Rav Ika Bar Abin, Amarav Chanano Amarav. Chalzon and Nahabed, apparently these are two different places. Rashi is Chalzon is a river. It's a river, that area, maybe it's on the river. It's mashma, we'll see later on that it's a separate place. It's not the river of Nahabed, it's mashma, it's two separate places. Maybe Chalzon is a city on a river, not clear. Harei could go and again, it's like Pumbedisa in terms of Yichus. And here Rashi repeats what he said yesterday's daf. On yesterday's daf on days, again, it's one of those cases where you have Rashi repeating the same thing in two separate places, or sometimes even on the same daf. I think it was on Gittin daf Ches, if I recall correctly, daf Zayin or daf Ches. And here we have it. We have the same Rashi in Ayin Al from Beis and Ayin Beis Al, where he says Kegola, and Gola he translates as, what does that mean? Kegola, it means like Pumbedisa. Rashi says it on Amid Beis yesterday, about 10, 12 lines from the bottom of the page. And here also, we have it here on Amid Aleph. Where is it? Let's see. It's so it's somewhere here. I'm looking if it's further down or further up. Somewhere on the page.
It's right
here.
Across where it says Le'el.
Le'el, where it says Le'el. Le'el.
On the side it says Le'el. From it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Where I'm not
it's
saying
about an inch down from where we are.
An inch down from where we are. Okay. So yeah.
Right above where it says
right above where it says Daniel Zion.
I'm missing it now. Say it again.
Daniel Zion in the middle of between the two.
Yeah, it's right there. I could go. All right, now I see it. Okay, thank you. I knew I saw it. Guess can't find it now. Okay, could go. So you see, that's the same Rashi. For Pumbedisa, Karigola, Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chopkim Lamed Beis. You see the same Rashi Lamed Beis, and you see it here in our hour. Again, it's repeated. Maybe it's I don't know if Rashi said it twice or whoever put it twice, but it was necessary in both Dapim. So it said, in case you're learning, in case you just started learning on Ayin Beis, you didn't learn now you have it here too. I think that's heat coming up. Somebody's for sitting. Huh? It's not heat? No, it's not working. Okay. Anyway, back to the Gemara. So,
Making noise.
It's making noise, but I don't think it's cool. Yeah. Anyway, these two places, Harei Kegola, like Pumbedisa, Chalzon and Nahabin are like two places. Upli Rav Avakana, Dom Rav Avakana, Maida Siv. It says, Vayanchem b'chalachu b'chavor, Nahar goes in, Lori Modai. Pasuk says that by Sancheirav, when he dispersed the 10 nations, the 10 tribes of Israel, it says there that he put them in Chalach, Chabor, Nahar Gozen, or in Modai. What are those places? Chalach, Su, Chalazon. Now, and the problem over here is when he put them in those places, they intermingled with the Goyim there. So how can you say that Chalzon and Nahavit are like choice places of lineage in Babel? We see over here that Sancheirav dispersed the 10 tribes in these places. In Chalzon and Chabor is Hadayev, Nahar goes in Zu Ginzek, Arimode Zu Chamdan, B'Chavroseh, it's Chamdan and its environs, its vicinity. Barmile Zu Nahavit B'Chavroseh. So it's Nahavit. So how can you say Nahavit is a good place for lineage? Here we see that Sancheirav mixed up the Jews with the Goyim over there. And Nahavit is Nahavit environs. So you see, Nahavit is not a good place. In my Chavrusa, what does it mean? But vicinity of Shmuel, Krach, Mushchi, Chuski, Barumak. Those are the environs around Nahavit. But the point is, telling you that all these places, the environs, whether it's Krach, Mushchi, Chuski, and Chubi, the environs, or Nahavit and Chamdan and Ginzek and Hadayev and Chalzon, they're all for showing that they are blemished, impure, that they're disqualified because they're mixed up. So you see here that this opinion argues with Rav Abba. Rav Abba Barkana says that these places are not good for lineage, and the other opinion was of Ravika Barabin that said in the name of Rav Chanano, in the name of Rav, that these are good places for lineage. We assume here that Mushchi Hainu Mushchani, this last one that we mentioned over here, Mushchi, where we said Hadayev and Ginzek and Chavoseh, Amila Zahav and Chavoseh, and he said and the environs of Nahavit are Mushchi. Now Mushchi, we assume that Mushchi and Mushchani are the same thing. Ivar Mechia Barav and Shmuel, Mushchani Arei could go Yochsin. He said it on the days yesterday that Mushchani is a good place for lineage. You have to assume that they are separate. Mushchi is one thing, Mushchani is something else. Pasuk says in Daniel, but Tlas Eloin, Daniel had visions, and he saw the first animal that he saw in this vision, Tlas Eloin, it had 3 ribs, in its mouth, Benchina, between its teeth. Now, in its mouth indicates that it's already all the way in the mouth. Benchina sounds like it's between its teeth. You could see it sticking out. So is it in its mouth, or is it sticking out of its mouth, between its teeth? These 3 ribs are these areas, Chalzon, Hadayev, and Netzivan. Shepamim Bolan, Vipamim Polzon. Sometimes Babel, which is what we're speaking about, the first animal is comparable to Babel. Sometimes it was under, these places were under Babel's jurisdiction. Sometimes, so to speak, he had swallowed it up, so it ruled over those 3 places. And sometimes he spit them out, meaning sometimes they were not under Babel's jurisdiction. But in any case, you see that, again, this place of Chalzon, maybe this fits in with the Machlokes, is Chalzon a good place or not a good place? Maybe it depends. If it was under Babel's jurisdiction, then it wasn't good for lineage. If it was out of jurisdiction, maybe it wasn't. But the Gemara doesn't seem to say that that's an answer for the Machlokes between these 2 rabbis, between Rav Abba Rakana and Ravika Barabin, who said Chalzon is good, and the other opinion was Rav Arkana said that it's not good. Doesn't seem to say that. And here, behold, there's another animal. Daniel had a second animal in his vision. Tanin, the second one. Dami Ladov looked like a bear. Son of Yosef, Elu Parsayim, these are the Persian Sha'ofim B'Shosin Kedov. In other words, his first vision was of Bavel, who was very strong in those days. The second vision was of the Persians. Sha'ofim B'Shosin, they eat and drink, they're like a bear. They eat and drink a lot of Musavan and they're fleshy like a bear. Umagadlan Seir, they grow a lot of hair like a bear. Though they're always restless. When you see a Persian riding, here's the wandering bear, always running around. Rabbi said to Levi was good at giving examples of saying, what does this guy look like? What does that guy look like? Give me a vision. I'd like to understand. Rabbi Levi says, give an example. What do the Persians look like? They look like the soldiers of the house of David, big and strong and riding and running around. Or any Chavron, he said, show me the Chavron. Chavron, Rashi says, are the people, these are Persians that are even worse. It's near Persia. Some say they're the fire worshippers. Mashisim, they destroy more than even worse than the Persians. These Chavran. So Harani Chavran says, they look like destroying angels that destroy. Harani Ishmael, show me the Yishmaelim, Domilasam, they are like the demons of basic Kisei. The demons like Shadu and basic Kisei. Interesting. There's a lot of allusions that we're talking about the different, the Iranians here, the Persians, the Yishmaelim, a lot of stuff that's you can relate to our current the current news that's going on. They look like ministering angels. When Rebbe was about to die, Rashi says over here, interesting, look at Rashi, 4 lines from the bottom of the page. This one I remember where it is. You see the important ones I remember. It says, as he was dying, some prophecy came to him. Saw some prophecy, sometimes like Nizraka Nevuah B'Pumei. Some prophecy was thrown into his mouth. What did he say as he was dying? Back in the Gemara, 6 lines from the bottom of the page. When Rebbe was passing away, he says there's a place in Babel called Humniya. Kulam Anam, those are all Amonam, those are all Goyim, bad guys, right? Misagraya Babel. There's another place called Misagraya. You know how many names of cities in Babel we have here? You can make a whole map just with what we've learned the last 2 letters. Misagraya Babel, Kulam Mamzerim, they're all Mamzerim there, all of them. He's telling you, don't get married to people in those places. Birka Babel, there's a place called Birka Shnei Achim Sham Yesh. There are 2 brothers there, that they exchange their wives between themselves all the time. Obviously, that's also a problem there. Mamzerim. Okay, and the problem, of course, with Amonim is even if they convert, Lo Yov Amonim Hashem forever, you can never accept them, even if they are Gerim. Those Ammonites cannot mix with us. Obviously, you can't mix with Mamzerim and Mamzerim brothers. Birsa the Sata Ikav Babel. There's a city called Birsa the Sati. Sati means that they turned away from God. So maybe that's the name of Birsa Hashem Shesorim Yachri Hamakom. How do they turn away? There's this city in Babel, Babel. Birsa the Sati Ikav Babel Hayom. Today it's in that city. There is such a place today. They ran away from God. Why? The Akvi Pira B'Kibri B'Shab. So one Shabbos, the Pira B'Kibri, a fish pond full of fish, overflowed. And they went and captured those fish. Those that overflowed, and they captured the fish on Shabbos. B'Shab. So B'Shamsinu Rav Achi Rav Yoshia put them in Chayrim because they all committed, they all desecrated Shabbos by committing one of the 39 malachos, which is capturing animals on Shabbos. And because he put them in Chayrim, they turned away from God. As we say, right? They turned away from Baruch Hashem to Avodah Zarah. Akra Agma, there is a city called Fort of Agma, which we had yesterday, the Fort of Tolgapi, and we have here the Fort of Agma, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Gemara also. It's called the Fort of Babel in Babel. Ada Bar Abba Yeshba. Now, this is already good. Until these other places that he mentioned have Goyim, Mamzerim, people who are over there, Avodah Zarah. This place in Babel has a good place. Why? Ada Bar Abba Yeshba. There's an Ada Bar Abba there. Hayom Yoshe B'Cheiko Shalom. Today he had his bris. Right? Today is bris. Some say he died, but then it's not the Ada Bar Abba that we have throughout Shas. So his Ada Bar Abba was born there today. This is Saul ben Nevuah. The Rebbe was on his deathbed saying these things. Hayom Yoshe B'Cheiko Shalom. We're at the first line on Amid Beis. Hayom no Rav Yehuda Babel. Today also, right? In other words, this is Rav Bar Abba's 8th day. He had his bris. Today also in Babel, Rav Yehuda was born. Damar Mak Shemesh Rav Akiva died. No, Rebbe was born. Shemesh Rav when Rebbe died. No, Rav Yehuda. In other words, there's always a overlap between the great rabbis, the great tzaddikim of the door. That when Rav Akiva died, Rebbe was born. Rebbe died, Rav Yehuda was born. Shemesh Rav Yehuda Nola, Rav was born. Shemesh Rav Nola, Rav Ashi. Meaning before Rav died, Rav Ashi was born. Lam b'chash ein tzadik niftim en olam ad shenivra tzadikim also. There is no tzaddik. The tzaddik of the generation does not die before there's another tzaddik who was born to take his place. Shenemar v'zarach Hashem sheba Hashemesh. As the sun rose and the sun came down. Meaning before the sun came down, before the sun set, another sun rose. Before the light or the Shemesh of Eli died, Shmuel was already born to take his place. Before the candle, the lamp of God, before it was extinguished, Shmuel Shachar was already there in the base of Mikdash. Tzivo Hashem leYaakov Sviva Tzarav. Hashem commanded that Yaakov will always have his enemy, always be surrounded by enemies, right? We can't get away from that no matter where we go, right? Even in our own land, we're always surrounded by enemies. And Rashi brings down, this refers to Ammon and Moab, that we're always around them, no matter what. They, wherever Yerushalayim, whatever. Moab, Shechene, Bishe, Yerushalayim. These are the bad neighbors that Yerushalayim has. Aviram Kagon, Pumnaya, Pumnar was a Jewish town. Obviously, Pumnar was in Babel. And Umnaya, we mentioned before, was a bad place, right? Rashi, that's what Rebbe said. Umnaya, Babel is full of Hamanoam. So that's an example. Umnaya was right next to Pumnahara. Wherever the Jews go, they always have Goyim next door to them. Vayihiki Navi, Cheskel said like this: when I was prophesying, Uplatyo ben Benayo Mace. At that point, this person's leader of Israel, Platyo, he died. The Apple upon I fell on my face. For Ezekiel, I cried out a great cry. But Omer, and I said, Aha Hashem Elokim. Whoa, God. Now, was he crying he was mourning? He was eulogizing this Platyo ben Benayo, or was he putting him down, deprecating him? Rav Shmuel, Machlokas, one said that Nechaskel said this, he was saying it in praise for Platyo. One said no, he was putting him down. He was ridiculing him. The one who said what happened? He had this Standra de Meshan. Meshan, we mentioned before, was a city of not such a good place. And we said he said here, like the governor of Meshan was Chasnei Nebuchadnezzar Habit. In the old tradition, maybe I'm not sure if the Jews got this from the Goyim or vice versa, but you always put your son or son-in-law in charge, right? So Nebuchadnezzar's son-in-law, he put him in charge of that city. The governor of Mishan was the son-in-law of Nebuchadnezzar. And of course, as soon as the son-in-law comes in, he thinks he knows everything, right? He wants to run the business. So Shalach Lei, he sent a message to Nebuchadnezzar, this son-in-law. You captured all these captured. You have all these captives. You have all these people that you've captured. You haven't sent me any of these captives to work for me, that should stand before me. So Nebuchadnezzar says, okay, he wanted to send him some of the Jews to be his servants there. Amalei Platyo ben Beneo, so Platyo ben Beneo said to Nebuchadnezzar, Anand Chashvin, and we who are more important, we Jews are more important. We'll serve in front of you. Here where you are in your capital. Va'avdin Nizlas, and send slaves over there. And as we're not slaves, we're Chashva people. We're important and respected people. We'll serve you. Your son-in-law, who's a little punk over there, what does he know? Send your slaves to him. Don't send us. But Omer Navi, and Cheskel said, Misha also Tova Israel, who did this good thing for Israel, Yamas B'Chasyam, he should die now. In other words, as we'll see, the other people who were Patio suffered the Misa Meshuna, and he died on his deathbed. So according to this, he did a good thing. He saved the rest of the Jews from going to work for the son-in-law, to being slaves for the son-in-law. So he did a good thing. So Cheskel was saying, he was masculine and he eulogized me and said, how should woe unto God? Why should this guy Platio? Why should he die so early? Why it's not fair? Like that's what he was mourning him. Bandar Malara, we have Rav and Shmuel. One said it was praising him. One said he was deriding him. The one who said it was deriding him. The says like this. But Taveo see the Spirit of God El Shar Beis Hashem brought me to the gate of the house of Hashem, the base of Yishakat, base of Hashem Kamoni, the Apona Kadima, Kamoni meaning over here Apona Kadima. It was facing east, right? Base Hashem, the Shabbos Hashem Kamoni, the eastern one that was facing east. Mine Pesach Hashar at the opening of the gate. Esr B'Chamisha, there were 25 people there. But I saw among them Yazniah ben Azur, one of them, Vesplatyo ben Benayo. I saw these two people, Jews, Shariam, were officers of the people. It said, Now is brought into the Chatzer, like the Chatzer, the Azor of the base of English, Beis Hashem Apimis, the inner one. Bine Pesach Heichal Hashem. Here's the opening of the Heichal. I was mamish in the Azor. I was by the Pesach of the Heichal. Beina Ulam ubeina Mizbeach. Right between the Ulam and Mizbeach. That's the opening of the Heichal is there. Between the Ulam, which is the entry into the Heichal, and the Mizbeach. Ge'esrim Chamisha Ish. Saw like 25 guys there approximately. Achareim al Heichal. Their back was towards the Heichal. Right now, when you come into the base of Mikdash, you come in from the east. Right, you come to the Heichal. Now their back was to the Heichal. U'fneim Kedma. They were looking east, so as you're facing towards the Heichal Hashem. The Heichal is like on the west. You're coming in from the east towards the west, and the opening of the Heichal Hashem is there. But their back was towards the Heichal, and they were facing east. So he says, if they say their face was facing east, obviously their back was towards the west. That's how geography works. If you're facing the east, your back is towards the west. So why does he say? He says that they were facing east and their back was towards the Heichal, towards the west. What does it mean their back was towards the Heichal Hashem? Obviously, they stripped, they revealed their backside. They defecated towards the Heichal. In other words, to show terrible disrespect, to show that they were really of the Avodah Zarah, show disrespect. But Kamar Navi, and the Navi said, and among them was Platio ben Benayo. And the Navi said, Misha also hara, as though somebody did this terrible evil. This you couldn't disrespect the Heichal Hashem in any greater way. Yisrael Yamas al Mikasa should die on his bed, meaning should have a normal death and shouldn't be killed like the rest of them who had a Misa Mishuna later on. So this was the two opinions as to what Yecheskel said. To Stayim the Shmuel, what does all this have to do with us? To Stayim the Shmuel, the Amar Lara. Let's prove that Shmuel was one who said that Yecheskel was deprecating, was reviling this Platio, saying something bad. The Amar Chia Bar and Amar Shmuel, he had said before, Mushchani, Harei Kagolo Liuchsin. Said Mushchani, we had yesterday, said Mushchani is like Bavel when it comes to Yichus. Mishun lo choshu lo mishum avdas. There are no slaves there at all. Lo mishum mamzeres. He said that Mushchani is like Pompadisa, and Mishon, he said, is there's no concern there about Avodim or Mamzerim. Ella, what was there? Ella Kahanim Shoiba, they were Kahanim, they were Pito al Grushos. They were not makbar on they married Grushos, as we've learned that since it's only a lav, even though any male sons are halalim and they can't serve as Kohanim, but the Kiddushin's chal. The Kohanim there married Grushos. There's no Mamzerim there, there's no Avodim there. Mishon, it's not as good as Mushchani, which is like the Pompadisa, but in Mishon is not a bad place, there's no slaves there. Oh, so it must be, the Gemara says now, this is how it relates to our Gemara, it must be that Shmuel was the one who said it's for bad. Why? Because the one who said it's for good was that Platio saved the Jews from being slaves, because when Nebuchadnezzar wanted to send to his son-in-law, who was the governor of Mishon, he wanted to send them slaves, he said, Platio said, don't send the Jews, send somebody else. Send somebody else. Now, if you say that Shmuel was the author of this good side, so what do you mean? There were slaves that were sent. There were slaves that were sent to Mishan. That's exactly what Platio does. He says, don't send us regular Jews, send the slaves, send the slaves there. So according to that, there were slaves there. So how could Shmuel have said, but Mishan, you don't have to worry about any slaves? Right, so it must be that Shmuel did not say the first opinion that Platio was good because he saved the Jews by sending the slaves there, but rather the second opinion that he was a bad guy. He was among those who were embarrassed and shamed the base Mikdash. So that this is what we have to do over here. That's what this thing is. Mishon is brought down over here. Obviously, this whole story goes of Mishon. So the Gemara, no, it could be Shmuel the first opinion too. That Platio said to save the Jews by telling the regular Jews should stay with the Nebuchadnezzar, and the bad Jews, the slaves, will go to Mishan. Shmuel to make the Amar. Shmuel goes according to his own reason. The Amar Hamafka Abdo Yaslacheres. If you're mafka your Eved, he goes out free. So there were no slaves there. As soon as they were mafka them, they sent all the slaves there. They weren't slaves anymore. Ein Atzarf Getshef doesn't mean Getshef for Shnemer. It says Kolevet Ish Miknas Kefet Miknas Kesef. Any servant of a man who is acquired by money. Evedish, the Gemara says, what do you mean Evedish? Evedish will Evedish. It means to tell you that only an Eved of a Jewish man and not the Eved of a woman. So I say Evedish. Ella Eved Sheish was just the Rabbalov, only an Eved whose master has authority over him, that he's an Eved of a person. Korea is called an Eved. Eved Shein Rabbalov just like if you would only have any authority over him, ain't a Kori Eved. Meaning, when Platio, it could be that Shmuel, we don't really know who said what. Rav and Shmuel, one interpreted for good that Cheskel was praising Platio, one says that he was deprecating him. But we can't tell from this, from Shmuel's opinion that Mishan didn't have any slaves, that it wasn't the first opinion, because it could be that he did say send them slaves, but once he sent them the slaves, they're no longer slaves because they had no authority over them. That's why he said that Mishan, there's no slaves there. Amar bin Amar Shmuel. This whole discussion we've been having for a few days about that Ezra was Matire all of Babel before he went up, and therefore Babel is the most pure, but the other lands are not. That's all Rav Meir's opinion. You can assume that Jews, even from New York, from Paris, from all over the world, you assume that Jews are kosher unless you know otherwise. He allowed Rav Huna bar Nosson lamented Issamim of Chuzaisa to marry a woman from Chuzaisa, apparently without checking too carefully. And to Yichus and Rashi says here, Chuzaisa, it sounds like that's Mechuza. Now we learn Mechuza is like bubble, but Rashi says, Ein Mechuza b'toch the bubble amur min Yosef. Even though we know that we always talk about Mechuza as being the place of bubble where they had, where apparently was in bubble, but it wasn't within the boundaries of bubble that we have defined as far as having pure lineage. So he allowed, apparently somebody to get married, he allowed Shirley Rav Huna bar Nosson to marry somebody even from a place outside of bubble proper. Amalei Ravashi, my doubt, Ravashi, why are you assuming that the Rabbi Amar Shmuel to the Rav Meir because this chair is saying Amdos? Why did you do that? Ameimar, why did you allow Rav Huna to marry somebody from a Chuzah? Why? Because you hold, like Rabbi Amar Shmuel said, that only Rav Meir said that all the lands are considered impure and have to be checked out as far as Eretz Yisrael and Bubble are concerned. Every other place in Cheskes Kasha, but that's fine. That's one opinion of Shmuel. But Bei Rav Kana in the yeshiva Rav Kana lo masniach, they didn't learn that way. But Bei Rav Papa lo masniach, and in the house in the yeshiva of Papa they didn't learn that way. But Bei Rav Svid lo masniach, they also didn't learn that way. Why? They held that you go like Rav Meir, that all the lands, all the other countries in the world are considered mixed up or considered impure as far as Eretz Yisrael is concerned, and Eretz Yisrael is impure as far as Babel is concerned. Still, a Maimer did not accept it. Mishum the Shmiel Aimer of Svid Nardo, because he heard from Rav Svid of Nardo directly that we accept Jews from all over. Tamarabanim. Mamzer ben Asini to harm loss of love. Everyone back to our issue of Mamzer and Asinim that we're going to talk about. The Mishnah said that he has separated the Mamzer from the Asinim, and the Mishnah also mentioned that who can marry whom, right? What did the Mishnah mention? That Mamzerim and the Asinim can marry one another. Mishnah said, then he goes on to explain who they are. But now we're going to get into those details. Are they all allowed to intermarry with one another? And what's their status? So first he says, we have machlokas here. What's going to be in the future? Are Mamzerim going to be Mamzerim when Mashiach comes? So Mamzerim is seen a term less of love of the Rabbi. That says they're going to be purified in the future. However, it got mixed up. Even people who are Mamzerim, we're going to purify them. Mashiach will have that ability. Meir Omer, ain't Tom, they will not be Tom. Amalei Rabbi Yosef, the pasuk says, "V'zarakti aleichem ma'im." In the future, I will pour upon you mine Torah, purified waters, v'tihartam, and you will be purified. Amalei Meir, Shu Omer mikol tumosechem, mikol gulechem. What he says is, I will purify you. Rav Meir rules that the Mamzerim will continue to be Mamzerim in the future. Hashem is saying that I will purify you from all your impurities and from your idols. But not from bastardy, from being a Mamzer. That's in your DNA. You can't change that. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Shuomer Ataras Chem. It says afterwards. It says when we call the Ataras Chem another tar. It says Rakle Utartem. What is it? And then it says when we call the Lechem Ataras Chem. Those words that are added on. Abiyomer Afmanam Zera. So he learns. If we have machlokas, will they be purified? Will the baby in Zerem lost love or not? The more special the pasuk says in Zechariah, the Yoshav Mamzer Bashdod. Merels will still be Mamzerim there. It says in the future that there will be Mamzerim in Ashdod. Okay, so there's going to be Mamzerim. The pasuk makes sense. There'll still be Mamzerim. Rav Yossi might be Yoshav Mamzer Bashdod. According to Rav Yossi, who says there will be no Mamzerim Lassav, but what do you mean there will be Mamzerim Ashdod? It's kind of a targum. Rav Yossi gives a tirgum for that pasuk in Zechariah. Yasvam Beis Yisrael L'Ruchtzan. Beis Yisrael will dwell securely. They will dwell in confidence. They will be safe. But Aaron Davadamu Bahalan Achron. In a land that was comparable to that before them appeared to be a strange land. Mamzer is like a lashon of Amzor, a strange place. Rashi explains that even though Yoshua divided up even the cities even as far as Ashdod, but he didn't actually conquer it. Rashi in the first of the wide lines said Damil Achron, Mamzer. Mamzer means like a place that's zar, a place that's zar to you. A place that was in a place that was strange from the boundary of its land. The Nitra and said the way Kamamzer Bashdod Gamhu Mikul Ersol. Ashdod is really part of Eretz Yeshua Chilki divided up after Pishal and Nifkush. So and one of them is Ashdod. In other words, that Yoshua didn't quite finish the job of conquering all the places of Eretz Yisrael. One of those places was Ashdod. So it means that the Amzar, the place that was strange, they were the people that were estranged from that land because they couldn't live there. Now they will be able to live in Ashdod, which is really part of Eretz Yisrael. And that's what he translates. So we have this machlokes, whether, like Rav Yossi, there will be no mamzerim less love, or Rav Meir says there will be. I'm going to read Rav Yossi. The law is like Rav Yossi, that the mamzerim will be purified loss of love. Rav Yosef, Elav, Rav Yehuda, Mishmuel. Allah Rav Yossi, had he not said that, have a also Elio, when Elio will come, I said Mashiach Elio will come and he'll be the tire of the mamzerim. Mapik minan Svarni Khan. He will take out groups and groups like necks and necks. There'll be tons of people who would have to. If it wouldn't be that he said that the halacha would be like Rav Yossi, that the mamzerim will be purified. Elio will have to come and separate the mamzerim. There'll be tons of mamzerim. In other words, by the time Elio comes, there's a lot of mamzerim around. If it wouldn't be, since he's saying they're going to be Torah, no problem. There won't be any mamzerim. But had he not come and said lachas Rav Yossi, Elio, when Elio would come, he would have to separate from us, pull away from us all these groups and groups of mamzerim. Tana Rabbana. Back to really the Mishnah describing who can marry whom. Again, we've mentioned many times in Shas that there's a machlokas whether the kahal gerim ikri kal. We're going to see in tomorrow's daf, at the end of the daf, tomorrow's daf, there are 5 places that talks about kahal Hashem other than tzuadaka. Tzuadaka is really a physical aspect. The other one's talking about the lineage. There talks about lineage. There are 5 times that kahal Hashem is mentioned. Now, the question is, are Gerim Kal Hashem or not? The pasuk is, well, Yovel Mamzer B'Kal Hashem, a Mamzer is not allowed to intermarry with Kal Hashem. Well, is a Ger Kal Hashem or not? If you say that Gerim are considered Kal Hashem themselves, not a Ger who gets married and have children. The children are Israeli, but a Ger who marries a Ger himself, is he a Kal Hashem or not? If he's Kal Hashem, a Mamzer can't marry him. If he's not Kal Hashem, then a mamzer could marry him. He's not Kal Hashem. We have mamzer Kal Hashem, but Gerim are not Kal Hashem, and therefore a mamzer could intermarry with a ger. So here the Gemara says like this: 2 lines from the bottom of the page in the Gemara. Talking about ger nosim mamzeres. Rav Yossi says that a ger can marry a mamzeres. Is this related to his shita that there won't be a mamzer loss of lava? Not necessarily, because even today when there is a mamzer, a ger can marry a mamzeres. Why? Because a ger kal gerim is not ikri kal, and therefore a mamzer is not kal, shouldn't marry Kal Hashem, and a ger is not Kal Hashem. I mean, you don't make ger lo yisam mamzeres. Ger says no, ger shouldn't marry mamzeres. Why? Because a ger is Kal Hashem, as we'll see. Echad ger, echad eved mishukar, whether he's a ger or whether he's a freed slave. B'chalal mutar mekanos. We know that a kohen cannot marry a zona, can't marry a grusha, right? Can't marry a Gioris, because she's a Zona, basically. Plus doesn't say you can't marry a Gioris, you can't marry a Zona. So if she converted after the age of 3, she's effectively a Zona. So a Kohen cannot marry a Yoris and cannot marry a Shifka for sure. Even a Yisrael can't marry a Shifka. But a Shifka that's Mishuchrar, an Eved Mishuchrar, right? An Eved Mishuchrar, that's freed. A Kohen cannot marry a Yoris. A Kohen cannot marry a Shifka that's been freed because she's also like a Zona, and cannot marry a Chalala, right? Chalala. All these people are also for a Kohen to marry. However, the reverse, a Kahanis, a Bas Kohen, could marry the equivalent. A Bas Kohen, in other words, even though Kohanim are forbidden from marrying these women, if they are a Yores or a Shifka or a Chalala, certainly a Grusha, and etc., because all these people have a halacha like a Zona, or a Kohen can't marry a Chalal because of Machal his children. But the reverse is not the case. In other words, a Bas Kohen could marry a Chalal, as we said, right? That Israelis could be matar, the children of a Chalal, and a Bas Kohen can marry an Eved Meshuchrer or a Ger, right? They can marry those people. That's another halacha. So a ger can marry a mamzeres from Yosef. Yehuda says a ger cannot marry a mamzeres. But everybody agrees that a ger or an Eved Meshuchrer or a Chalal could marry a kahanis. My time at Rabbi Yossi. Why does Rabbi Yossi say that a ger could be a mamzeres? Because he has chamisha kalitzit. This gets into tomorrow's up just to get to the top. Chamisha kalitzit. It says 5 times count. Chad l'kman, chad l'levim, chad l'Yisraelim, chad l'mishri mamzer b'shtuki, v'chad l'mishri shtuki b'Yisrael. So therefore, he says that kahal gerim lo ikrikal. In other words, when it says kahal, first kahal kohanim, levim, Yisraelim, a one to allow a mamzer to marry shtuki. We'll see about that because it's something that's mamzer not. A one to mamzer shtuki b'Yisrael, but the kahal gerim is not called the kahal. Therefore, a ger could marry a mamzeres. Why? Because a mamzer can't marry Kal Hashem, but a ger is not Kal Hashem, and therefore, according to Rav Yossi, a ger could marry a mamzeres. This Gemara will continue on. But Rav Yehuda says that a ger cannot marry a mamzeres because kahal gerim is yikri kal, and a mamzer is not allowed to love over Kal Hashem. All right, we'll discuss it. We'll pick this up again. We'll start here tomorrow and discuss this whole thing with ger and mamzeres. Have a good day, everybody.